Benedetti rhymes with spaghetti.
I did ask a lot of people, and they were like, "Big dream, man." It's like, leave me out here like this.
There you go.
Guitar player for Sheverb.
Indeed.
Would you say lead guitar player or just guitar player?
I would not say lead. Thank you for asking. And I think, well, there's two guitarists currently in Sheverb, Fern and myself, and we swap back and forth between rhythm and lead within almost every song we play. So it's kind of fun. Keep people on their toes.
Yeah.
People often try to figure out who's the front person of Sheverb or who's the lead guitarist, and the answer is there isn't one person. And that's pretty central to the makeup of the band right now.
Yeah, it's called Sheverb. It's not called like Betty and the Sheverbs, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
right
Or
on.
anyone else, like Zoe and the Sheverbs. It's Sheverb. It's a band, so it's a group of people. So it sucks when the lead singer always gets like the attention. Me being a drummer, I know this because I'm in the back. I'm forgotten. They're like, "Great show," and I'm like, "I'm over here. You're not even looking at me."
You know, even
I
like
want gratitude.
the way that we present ourselves on stage, we try to stand as much in a line as the stage permits, so that everyone, even our drummer Zena, kind of gets equal face time to the guitarists up front.
Right.
Sometimes stages are a little tight, you know, to do a fully presenting even line, but that kind of is a reflection of the band philosophy and how we operate. Are very egalitarian. Everyone gets equal vote, equal say on creative directions, and so we try very actively to not let any one person appear too predominantly as the front person or the face of Sheverb, because it's truly a collective effort.
Right, I got that because I was reading your, just reading through the credits of your album that you guys put out, Chapter 1, and it says all ideas and songs by Sheverb, and it didn't like state who came up with each riff. So therefore, you're like, it's that sense like you're giving like all songwriter rights are to the band at this point that was there recording this.
Totally.
So no one's like, if to say it's not gonna happen, but you guys get huge, and then one person starts making more money than the other. And then that's where like a lot of animosity comes from in bands.
Sure,
I always think of
totally.
the Smashing Pumpkins thing. You know what I mean?
There's countless examples of that, man. And Zena, our drummer, was going through business school or music business classes through ACC and kind of studying up on a lot of that, like how to legally set up the framework for your band and who gets rights and how you start getting into contracts. This is all very new to me, and I'm learning as we go. And it's really great to have someone in your band get real knowledgeable about such things. But, you know, she was literally going to school for this, and they were going through all these case studies, the Beatles, all these bands that have kind of broken under the pressure once money and fame gets involved,
Right.
when there wasn't a very kind of respectful, equal attribution and crediting of things. So that from the get-go was super important to us, that everyone gets equal pay, equal voice, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, again, Sheverb. No one is named Sheverb in the band. It's just a word.
Not yet.
Yes.
Not yet.
It's everyone's last name. That's what you should have done with it. You messed up there. At least the middle name. It was funny that you mentioned, I just heard this today, that the Beatles, I just wanted to say, because I thought it was so fascinating, they accomplished everything that they accomplished before they were 30 and broke up before they were 30 years old. In some ways, that makes me like have a lot of like motivation to try to like push harder because of how old I am. But it also is very hard to the ego and the soul, or just the fact that like, damn it, they did all
Totally.
that,
Well,
but they are a weird example. And to say the Beatles, no one's done what they have done.
Well,
still to this day.
Here's the
So-
flip side. There's a lot of like energy and passion to throw into projects when you're real young, but I mean, then look at the burnout factor. It's like a bright flame, but it doesn't last very long.
That's true.
And I'm like a huge Kurt Vonnegut fan. He did not write his first story, I think, until he was 30. I am 33, and I picked up the guitar at 30, 29, 30, just a few years ago. Xena, the drummer in our band, I hope she's not gonna get too mad at me for mentioning this, but she's in her late 40s, and she just picked up drums a few years ago too. So, I think any age is cool, and just because you're entering into older years, by no means needs to be a limiting factor.
True. I was going to ask you about that too, like
Yeah.
when you started playing and everything, and you and the drummer just started a couple of years ago. How discouraging that is for people like me and him, because you guys are really good, and that was like, wow. And it's really like, I think you put in that motivation, that passion, and you can really amp it up.
Thanks.
I hate to say 15 years I've been playing drums, because I was like, I feel like anyone would be a lot better if you had 15 years to do anything than what I am right now. But it came in spurts. Sometimes I feel more motivated to do
totally.
it than other times. Sometimes I just feel like super burnt out over it,
Mm-hmm.
So that is pretty awesome, though. Just picked it up and went right away, and been listening to your album all day.
Thanks.
And it is super dreamy. I want to be driving through the desert in like just a convertible old Cadillac, and I've been saving this acid in my freezer, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I listen to? What am I was thinking the same thing. I was like, you know what? This might be the best thing to listen to, and I'll just have to put it on repeat, because
Scott,
it said it's
you're
gonna.
hitting on all of the good points. That album in particular, Chapter 1, we wanted to make road tripping, desert, psychedelic tripping music.
Yeah.
This is what we set out to do with that album.
feel
So
it.
thank you for affirming all of those things.
Yeah, immediately, first song, I was just like, I can close my eyes and just imagine the place where I could be.
That's
know what I mean?
awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of the kind of initial seeds, I'll say, for those songs that made it onto Chapter 1 started with little licks that largely I wrote in. I worked for Burning Man seasonally for 8 years, and so I spent a lot of time up in the North Nevada desert, very desolate, open stretches of desert, where, like, sitting by the train tracks and the occasional train going through is kind of like the excitement that you have to draw people together with, and hanging out in those kind of big open vistas and that vibe and soaking up that desert. That was where those songs were written. So I always am so happy when people feel that from the music, even though they're
Definitely.
not physically maybe in those places, or maybe never have been in those places.
And your guys' image pulls towards that too. The pictures that you guys take, the album cover for explanation. Am I good? Is this mic good? Just had to check with producer. Just had to check. All of it was like, and there was another thing I want to go on, because you obviously wear many other hats besides for this, is like you work for like promotioning, graphic design kind of thing to help like a band or a company push further. So you totally get the idea when it comes to the image and like the overall, like if I go to your page, I know exactly what you guys are. I know what type of music. I'm not like, what type of band is this? Like, where can I find your music? It was all very well laid out to the point to, yeah, it made me go back and be like, is mine? Like, I gotta scrap some shit.
This is, again, traces back, I think, I'm going to call this an advantage of coming to music a little bit later in life. I've lived a few other chapters and worn a lot of other hats. Same with our drummer, Xena. She's an engineer and has a whole lot of crazy other chapters to her life that she'd be a great candidate to interview for this sometime. But, so we get all of that extra experiential life skill sets to come into the project. So, yeah, for me, I do freelance graphic design and marketing and branding, mostly usually in medical and clinical trial world. That's a whole nother crazy thing. But yeah,
whoever's paying.
It's nice
Money.
to have clients with deep pockets, because God knows if you're in the music biz, that is not really a passion of deep pockets. But,
yeah, not very lucrative.
But so I get to bring a lot of that skill set to the band, and Xena brings a lot of the kind of more like engineer. Man, we've been on tour and had pedals and amps and stuff like that fritz out, and it is so cool to have someone in your band that can like open up and
like
start
a tech,
tinkering.
yeah.
Have like a tech on the road, have your social media guru on the road. It's good.
So you guys are like covering all the elements that we need to be, and like cutting out like, fuck that, you don't need a manager. It's like you already have the capabilities and the knowledge to do it,
I will say, so with Chapter 1 in particular, this was the first album Sheverb was going to cut, and we kind of had a philosophical discussion as a band, and we said, we could totally DIY this. I do graphic design and social media. I could make the art for the album cover. Xena does recording. She's working at Ice Cream Factory right now. She could have recorded it. But we kind of really wanted to set a tone of being collaborative with as many outside influences and energies as possible. So instead of me doing the graphic design for the album and Xena recording it, we decided to dive hardcore into a Kickstarter, and we raised a bunch of money. It was really successful, thanks to everyone who contributed. And we sought out the studio we wanted to record at, the engineer we wanted to work with and mix us. We sought out an outside artist. We have this kind of backstory going on with Sheverb, and we had a little story excerpt that we wanted read aloud over one of our tracks, and that made it onto Boxcar Western on Chapter 1. And even when it came down to, speaking this story, it was like, well, any one of us in the band could have done that, but why not take this opportunity to collaborate with another artist? Let's find another. We love to work with women artists as much as possible, although that is by no means like an exclusionary criteria. So we chose Hartley Hall, an amazing local country singer, and invited her to come speak on the album. We worked with Lauren Massey, a burner friend from Australia who did the album art. We went to Belltree Studios and worked with Gary Calhoun for the recording. And so, that was kind of the approach we took. We didn't really want to DIY it. We wanted to be musicians, focus on the music, and select the artists that we wanted to learn from and collaborate with, and figure out how to pay them well to do it. So I feel like all of that was what made Chapter 1, for sure the thing that it became, which I know we're all really proud of.
Yeah, that's a great fact, because you guys had that possibility of just DIYing and having that, but I've noticed, I love watching those rock and roll documentaries, and just any stupid rock and roll movie, I'll watch it.
Totally,
like, everyone's just like, that movie sucked. I was like, I loved every second of it. Like, there's a movie about any form of music, I would watch it. That you start to learn that some of the best albums that I've ever heard, or people consider some of the best albums, weren't just the band that was there. It was great producers, great engineers, and maybe like someone in there just maybe pushing past or looking on the outside in and saying, hey, maybe it would sound better like this. Because I know when I've recorded, I will get the recordings back, and then I'm like listening, I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be cooler to do it different? And you're like, now I'm listening to it, like I could switch it around. So I automatically start to change, like from my last recording onto each live set after that. But what a great idea to just outsource that labor and try to get something that you weren't expecting, maybe.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's good from a lot of angles, in terms of like helping keep creativity and a fresh perspective, having lots of I won't say just any voice, but the curated voices and perspectives that you're excited to bring it. That's just gonna boost the momentum going into your own project. And then for example, with Lauren Massey doing that album art, Sheverb has a huge page on her artist portfolio site, and we get traffic to our music from Australians that like her art, that know our artist,
Right.
So there's just these continued bridges built, and a network gets formed, and that helps just widen your audience, so it's good from a lot of angles. It's what you just said reminded me of, I was listening to this podcast. It was actually about the science of creativity, a bunch of researchers who are studying creative process, and one of them was talking about some of Brian Eno's techniques with recording.
Yeah.
And I guess he would do this thing where he had like a set of cards, and he would have like band members like pick a card, and that would have like some weird direction for the day. And like one of them, as an example, was that every musician in the band had to pick up a different instrument than their primary instrument and just jam out for a little bit. And that, and all of those cards, but that one in particular is a great example of like the power of disruption, like breaking people out of how they always do things, and they normally do things, or normally play their instrument, or normally come into their band dynamic. When you can like shake that up, that's when opportunity for create a little creative burst and thinking about things a little differently comes in. So yeah, all that good stuff.
Super fascinating. What a great idea to like kind of like just take away, like being a musician, super overthinking, and you're just so meticulous about things, and then that might actually be destroying a lot of things. Is you not being free and trying it maybe a different way, because
you're
just
flow.
Right.
Gotta
you gotta get
that access to flow.
And what a great way to like fuck with the band and like break that from them to kind of get something going, and having someone that can see something that you could be that you're not yet. They can see it, but maybe you can't, and then they're just gonna push to make you get there. And I'm sure tons of bands were that way. Like, I mean, Led Zeppelin probably just had like great producers in the background just being like, not harder, faster, like more, you know, and just building up that energy and being like, oh shit, I had no idea. Or those famous vocal takes where it's like, just fucking around, did it once, and they were like, oh, that was great, do
awesome.
it again.
Yeah.
I can't.
That was it.
That was it.
Totally.
That's about it. So many other hats. I mean, we could sit here and talk about the Sheverb thing forever, but the Burning Man thing you brought up, I'll go back to my list, my notes.
Notes are coming out. Notes.
When I do these interviews, or just a sit down talk, I don't like the interview. I do my research. Since everyone's not famous, it's not like a Wikipedia page, I can go and just start seeing all this stuff. So it's a Facebook page, pretty much your social media presence, and seeing what you're into. Yours was so well set up, more than anyone else, where it took less time to find. Where it's like you had the band on your page linked. All those jobs, even jobs that you worked in the past, that was like, oh, you can kind of see everything that you're doing, and you lay it out very well. So it was very easy to research you and
I can't turn it
see.
off.
Yeah,
can't turn off the marketer in me.
So that's why I have this page of notes over here. But you were saying you do the Burn Man annually. It's a volunteer kind of thing. So you just out of passion of your heart, for real.
Get paid to work for Burning Man.
Don't tell everyone else that. But you've probably done it long enough to the point to where they're like, hey, you know the ins and outs, the this and that.
Yeah.
Like you're a valuable member.
Well, that might be a subjective thing, but
okay.
This will be my 9th year working for
you
Burning Man, and specifically my job there is I have been involved with the bicycle program. So for 6 years I managed the community bike program. It's really cool.
Right.
You've never been to Burning Man?
The Black Rock Community Transit yellow bikes.
Oh my gosh, high five.
Yeah.
so well researched.
I got this piece of paper.
It's awesome. We build 1,000 bikes that are released during event week at Burning Man for anyone and everyone to use. No locking it, decorating it. If you see one, you can get on it, ride it somewhere, put the kickstand down when you're done, leave it for the next person. So it's kind of like a free communal shared resource. It's a very, very fun program. I also oversee the abandoned bike cleanup efforts and kind of serve as a liaison to a lot of the bicycle-themed camps for Burning Man. So everything bikes at Burning Man I've been passionately working for the last, this will be season 9 out there.
Season 9, jeez.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's every year thing?
Yep.
I always heard of Burning Man, but obviously it's just like one of those things you just hear of and you don't really know unless you've been there, unless you're about it, you know?
It is one crazy week officially in the North Nevada desert, but the job that I do out there usually is a 2 to 3 month commitment out there every year.
Wow.
It's fun. It's a crazy, weird chapter of my life for sure that I would not trade for anything. But
an adventure.
There's a couple hundred staff members that are out working in the North Nevada desert near the site for several months on either end of the event week, kind of bookending the event week for all the production cycle stuff. It's crazy. It's fun.
Yeah, it's great. You just go there for like the 2 months in advance to like set up and get ready for the thing, or it's kind of like
essentially,
a
yeah,
couple weeks and then a couple weeks after.
It's about a month and a half before and then about a month afterwards.
That's totally awesome. I love the desert. I don't
It's
know.
fun.
I just want to go there one day and just sit in it, but
Burning Man is a humongous event. I think the ticket sales go up to like 70,000 now. It's a huge
dollars.
No, sorry, people. They sell 70,000
Okay. I was like,
tickets,
huh.
but the tickets are not cheap. I don't know exactly how much they cost because I've never bought one. I've always worked
9 years. 9 years.
But I think they're like $400, maybe more. And the tickets sell out quick. Anyways, it's worth it, but it is quite an endeavor to get up there, and people spend like the whole rest of their calendar year planning and thinking about how to make the most of that 1 week. So if that is a little out of scope for you or anyone listening to this, I would recommend checking out regionals. So Burning Man there's this one big event, the Burning Man, the big one that they throw in North Nevada desert, but then they host and support a network of regionals that happen all over the world. I've worked the one in New Zealand, they have them in Spain, they have them in, I think, Israel they have one now, Africa, a lot of friends go work that one. And pretty much every state in the U.S. has a regional burn. And it's basically a mini Burning Man event that has all the same principles and kind of loose structure and setup and definite cultural feel to it, but in a way smaller, localized setting. They're much cheaper. They're much easier to get tickets to generally. And so Texas has like 3 regional burns that happen throughout the year.
We have enough room for it.
Yeah, so that's a really fun way to kind of like, I don't know, stick your toe into
dip
that
a toe
world,
for the big job. Yeah,
go through the whole crazy big burn logistical feat.
That it has to be like a little bit of rough living out there for that week, right? Desert wind.
It depends. You know, I think that camping like outside and camping in Texas to me is way more brutal than spending 2 months in the North Nevada desert. It's so dry. You can barely shower. You never hardly smell. I mean, it's just, there's not like this intense,
you
heavy...
get cleaned by the sand that blows upon you.
Honestly, that dust that kind of covers you when you're out there serves as a great sunblock. I never put sunblock on. I never get burned. I don't need to shower all that much, although it's really nice to do if you can get access to the showers out there. But
cold water.
I dig it, but you know, it's not for everyone.
I would definitely be out there with an umbrella, wearing all black, and just have my gothic mascara just running down my face. Like, I just don't like the sun. I love the night though. I would come to life.
Doom metal and black metal, black coffee. There's a camp out there that does black metal and black coffee. They've been doing it for years.
That's where
it's
I would
one of
be
my favorite camps, and you would be in a sea of pale people in all black with black makeup running down your face.
Here in the desert.
Drinking coffee.
Nice. We could talk about that all day too, but talking about that doom metal, black metal thing, you do doom metal yoga.
Yeah, that's
doom metal
true.
yoga.
That's true.
It was black metal yoga, and then...
Well, okay, black metal yoga was led by a friend of mine named Amy Patton. She's been doing black metal yoga in Austin for years. When I graduated yoga school a couple years ago, I started doing doom metal yoga. I had never met Amy, and I had never heard of these black metal yoga classes, and people kept confusing us for one another and the classes. And so finally we got in touch, we went to each other's classes, and now we've become great friends. She was at our show that we played last night on Swan Dive. And yeah, so there's a lot of support and camaraderie. We both started teaching these weird metal yoga classes because we come from rock and roll scene, friend network, and not a ton of, motivated, athletically inclined activities going on. And we wanted to kind of put together a practice that would maybe be appealing to a lot of our friends that would normally totally shun a yoga class or a workout
Right.
activity. So that was kind of the impetus for starting it. But yeah, it's been wonderful. You know, it was about 3 or 4 years ago that I started getting really hardcore into yoga and guitar at the same time, which incidentally coincided with
Each other?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And also kind of chilling out on the partying. I don't know what happened in late 20s, but I just got really bored drinking as much as I did in my early 20s. And when I decided I was just going to fill my time and space with more gratifying activities, suddenly all these huge, beautiful practices kind of emerged. And the yoga and the guitar were really parallel tracks for me because both of them were providing me these little gateways into a certain feeling, a certain headspace, a certain body space that I was so drawn to. It felt like after a yoga practice or after going to some of my favorite bands' live shows, there was like these kind of channels unlocked in me.
Kind of feel high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, it was a natural high. It was some serious magic, and I wanted to like crack the code on those things. Like, how can I become more knowledgeable about these practices so that I can create that magic for myself and help create it for other people. So yeah, they were very parallel tracks for me in a very strange way later in life.
Well, that and it's important to stretch. Like,
Yes.
always.
Man.
Something I do not.
I was just
yeah,
listening to
need-
your drummer, the BANGover production podcast, and y'all are talking about getting injured and stuff from crazy drumming.
all the time.
And, yeah.
At least for me. And when he was like, "Well, are you stretching?" I was like, "Wait, are you not getting as injured as much as me?" Because we look like we're playing the same, like very heavy, very intense. But it's something that I'm doing that has to be wrong, and I think it's yoga. I'm missing yoga from my life.
Dude,
I need to stretch.
I've been
I
wanting
cannot
to
do it on my
throw
own.
a yoga class for musicians, like specifically targeting the repetitive motions that
Right.
can lead to injuries.
This one.
Yeah, for
That hurts.
any instrument. It usually involves way too much sitting and a whole lot of repetitive motion, which can be dangerous if you're not like doing things to counteract or do some strengthening of the key muscle groups involved in that
Right.
repetitive action. So, okay, this is another nudge that I need to get that class going. Would you come to my yoga class?
Yes,
if
I was
did
going to
yoga
ask
for
you, actually.
musicians?
I was like, I wanted to come to the doom metal one. I was like, I saw how to sign up. I was like, I have to fucking find time to do this because even right now, there's this muscle right here in my ass and it's killing me. It's like the sciatica, I guess. I'm not sure what it's called, but I guess what it is, I just don't plant. When I'm not using double bass, I don't plant my left foot down. So I'm kind of like hovering or not stabilizing myself to do something kind of intense. So it's just messing up my left leg for whatever reason. I thought it was just a stretching thing. Like there has to be a yoga pose to get to this muscle, right? I'm like, how do you stretch a butt?
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you stretch your butt?
Okay, well, that will be class number 1. How to stretch your butt
How to stretch
for
butts,
musicians.
yeah.
Yoga.
Yes. If you can loosen up that, I feel like that's the key between your entire
Dude,
body,
honestly,
right?
like 90% of the I'm making this number up, but it's probably more than that.
It's a high number.
Needs some opening up of the hips because the more we sit, which we sit way too much in the
Yeah,
developed
look
world.
how I'm sitting. It's
Yeah.
all messed up. Like, I'm
Ugh.
trying to fix myself. I'm uncomfortable.
It's doing bad things to your lower back.
I know, right?
But I'm not trying to
Robotic
get
spine.
all not preaching on the health aspects because I'm by no means a saint on those terms. But I'm very grateful for some of the few healthful practices that have taken hold in my life in the last few years.
And another thing with yoga, breathing, right? So you work on your breathing a lot to like when you strain your body. They always say like when you're lifting weights, some people hold their breath, and that's really bad because you're like going to tire yourself out from not breathing.
Yeah.
But it's like something you do subconsciously, and just like yoga kind of work on you like learning how to breathe in and out when you do something kind of like a bit strenuous, right? Like that's what I've heard.
Yeah, integrating the breath into movements is certainly a very cornerstone foundational thing for the type of yoga that I do, and I think most types of yoga. But Another thing that it does, focusing on your breath, that is, and coordinating your movements with breath, is also something that I can say for the music practice. It is something that kind of like helps shut everything else out of the mind, or maybe fades into the background is a better way to put it. So the stress, the grocery list you gotta go run and do, the bills you gotta pay, all
Right.
of that kind of just like fades away from the front of your consciousness when you are given this task of focusing on your breath and moving with that breath, and getting into that kind of very present but also almost like tranced out meditative space is something that I completely try to is one of my favorite things about playing an instrument.
Right.
Using an instrument in that same way. There is a concept in oh gosh, I'm totally blanking on some key words I should be saying right now, but the idea of
Words.
samadhi. It's a Sanskrit term. It's one of the 8 limbs of the yogic tradition. It's like the highest rung on that ladder. And the idea behind samadhi is that, the way my teacher described it to me, the meditator, the object being meditated on, and the act of meditation all dissolve and become one, and you kind of like achieve that state of universal connection. Getting a little woo-woo on this right now.
Harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first time that my teacher explained samadhi in those terms to me, my immediate direct experience where I had felt that before was playing guitar, where the guitar itself, the notes I'm playing and the music coming out of it, what my fingers are doing and what my mind are thinking have all kind of like dissolved boundaries, and there's just this flow state happening, where you're like, I don't even know what I'm playing right now, but things are coming out and I love it, and get into that state.
And you're not even thinking like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. All you can think of is just, it is actually nothing. You're not thinking about anything. All it is kind of like just bliss in your mind, and it's just, I don't know what I'm thinking of when I get there, but it's just going with it. And anytime I try to think, wait, what am I doing? Am I doing it right? And I start to focus on my hands or something, and then I'm like, no. Look up in the air.
Yeah,
Stare at a light bulb.
Get out of
the head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how you do something great. That being said, I do want to keep talking about this topic, but we have to take a little commercial break, and we will, be back. You want to create your own podcast? Well, I'll tell you how we did ours. We used Anchor. Anchor is an easy way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your computer or phone. They give you creative tools allowing you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. They'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. So if you want to start your own podcast, use Anchor. That's what we did. We were talking before about that energy, that mindset you can find yourself in sometimes when you play. I liked the idea of, it was like super into magic, don't tell anyone. And no one listening to this tell anyone else, but I don't want to be called a nerd.
Gathering, or are we talking like magic?
I was thinking more like magic rituals, and like that whole idea of like what they call chaos magic is like kind of creating your own ritual for something that you're looking for. Like if you want something, I don't know too much, and if you dabble in it wrong, you could fuck up your life. But I constantly have these little rituals or little things that I do. I think that help me with certain things, like financial things, and I have this little ritual that I do when it comes to money, and I think that it's lucky because I'm right now not, like really struggling for money, so that kind of magic thing. And I always think of like when you're playing music, it's like the idea of like the ley lines, and you just like connecting into those waves that the earth like naturally produces, right?
100%. I love that. That is probably the predominant framework that I like to think about music, especially when it comes to performing. It is like an opportunity to be casting a spell. You have all, like when you go into a room, you're in a bar, and there's a couple people milling about, everyone's maybe having some side conversations, everyone's in their head thinking about whatever it is they're thinking about, and as a performer, you get this amazing opportunity to help kind of like direct and wield the energy of everyone's awareness and kind of direct it into a flow together. So like sometimes I have this visual in my head when I'm on stage looking out at the crowd, and it's like everyone's kind of this little wiggling line of vibrational energy, and everyone's bouncing around in different directions. Their awareness, what their inner thoughts are, might be completely scattered and all over the place. But as soon as someone starts powerfully aligning like those vibrational states into a pathway together, and you get this added momentum of having that collective focus on a certain emotion or a certain feeling or sensation. That is magic right there, man.
I think love it. That's kind of like one of the reasons why musicians are musicians, for that feeling. It doesn't happen every time you play, but you're definitely trying to get to that. It's like the worst analogy. It's like the heroin addict. The first time he tried heroin, felt that drug, he's just trying to get back to that high. We were just trying to get back to that level of like, sometimes we just find ourselves sitting in there with that vibe that, like you said, you can like use it, harness it, and focus it, and then you can change the entire room. Everyone's just sitting there talking, you know, you're about to go on, and as soon as you guys start playing that first song, everyone's like heads just turn and directed, and you can do that with just being like super genuine and finding what you're doing is like it's doing that for you as well. And then people see that vibration, and then they're like, oh, I'm starting to feel what they're feeling. Yeah. Because you gotta be genuine with it, though. It's hard to fake, if you will.
Totally. As someone who's relatively new to playing music and getting skilled at an instrument, that was one of the biggest light bulb revelations. Was much more important than your technical, are you making every note tone perfect, crisp throughout a set. I mean, on some level, that is important. I'm not trying to dismiss that, but what people walk away from at the end of a show isn't how many notes that you hit perfectly. It is how much connection they felt, how much they were impacted by seeing you and being in the room with your music and the performance, and were they able to connect with it, and helping, or focusing your performance on that sort of a thing instead of the technical chop side of it. Once I kind of made that switch and decided, like, I'm not gonna stay in my head and really be hypercritical about the technical side of performance. Just staring at the neck of your guitar to make sure. I want to connect with the people in the room, and I want people to feel something from the music. Those shows where I feel like I've accomplished that, if anyone in our band like completely dropped a part of the song, who cares? No one in the crowd even knows or thinks about that afterwards, as long as there was that genuine sense of connection. Unless
I was there, and then I would like, they totally fucked up, and I'm like, I'm telling people, I'm like, yeah, they were off right there. I think that guitar's out of tune. I'm the worst to go to anyone's shows. I cannot have fun. It's like work a little bit, because I when I like, especially when I see like even your band, like I'm sitting there like studying your guys' like movements. I'm like, what are they doing? Like I wanna see what you guys are doing, and like kind of use it to help me in some ways, because if I see something that I kind of really like, and I'm like, oh, that was a better way of approaching the crowd that way, and having that,
true. If you are in the music biz, then there's a little bit of magic gone from it, but I'd say the trade-off is well worth it.
Right. And don't ever take my opinion for anything, because it is shit, and every band I'm in, and all my bandmates would tell you the same. They're
That's
like,
not true.
he is so negative. Every time we play a show, he's like, that sucked. Can you guys get better? Like, get your shit, like throwing guitars and throwing drumsticks. I find myself like super passionate, and I have calmed down a bit about it, but I really like I deep dive really hard into it, and it has
You got to a little bit. If
yeah.
you wanna,
there's a balance.
if you're
There's
gonna
definitely a
If
balance.
you're gonna stay motivated and driven, that's not.
That's
a
how I
bad
think of it
thing.
too, right? Like I use the rage, the anger sometimes as like a motivational tool.
Yeah.
But don't let it take full control over like my emotions, because you could start lashing out, and like that's another thing. Like when you guys were recording your first demo, did you a lot of like there's always that story of like when the band goes into the studio to record their first album, they break up right afterwards, right?
Yeah, totally.
There's always that like urban legend. It's kind of real.
I was
but
nervous about it for sure, because going in to do chapter 1 was my first studio experience, period. I believe it was Zena's also. Fern, the other guitarist, I'm pretty sure the only one of us that had any prior studio experience. So I was nervous as hell.
Nervous.
And really, I mean, I am definitely probably the person in the band that gets a little bit like hyper driven, motivated, constantly pushing everyone to want to reach a little higher and
Right.
take on bigger things. But one secret, mom snacks, that's what we call it in our band. I went out and bought a ridiculous amount of amazing snacks, good cheeses, and we just that goes good food, good snacks, mom snacks can help alleviate a lot of pressure, I think, during long studio days. And cold brew coffee, delicious, very strong
Right.
cold brew coffee. But no, man, we had an amazing engineer that kind of really was amazing, holding our hands through the process. We left a little bit of room for some experimental. So we had been playing the songs that made it onto chapter 1 for at least a year. But we still wanted to leave a little bit of like, well, let's just see what's going to happen when we get in the studio. So as an example to that, on the first track, Side Saddle Strut, the first track on chapter 1, there's like a toy piano intro. Well,
I saw someone was listed as playing the toy piano.
I think that was Fern.
I want to find where that is in this 7 songs.
Just a little tiny intro to Side Saddle Strut, but there was a cool toy piano with a really creepy twang in the studio, and we were like, well, let's just throw this into an intro on something. So we kind of wanted to leave a little breathing room. Like we didn't at that time have a bass player in our band. It was just a 3-piece. We now have an amazing bass player, Lainey. She's awesome. But so Fern largely did the bass lines for that the chapter 1 songs, and those were largely made up, on the fly. So it was a fun amount of like structure, spontaneity, having a super solid engineer that really took a lot of the pressure and stress off of it, because none of us really had to like focus on that stuff.
And he would know what is going to work and what's not going to work.
Yeah.
So if you guys tried something experimental, he could very well be like, I don't think it's working on this end.
Yeah.
And in some ways, also, like, you can always take that creative side, which is like, put your foot down and be like, no, I promise you, this is going to sound great. If you have something in your head you're trying to betray. Mm-hmm. But it is a great balance, and I would love to work with a producer one day, because right now I've just been doing a lot of DIY, like you were saying. We outsource the artwork. We do all the production ourselves, but I think in doing that, we're kind of missing an element that was much needed to create something better than even what we thought it was going to be. Because, it takes a village to grow a garden. I don't think that's a saying, but yeah, okay, there's a saying there.
Takes a village.
It takes make an album, to make a platinum selling record.
That's true.
It takes a room of nerdy people, I think, that just have
I can't
all the
say
ideas.
enough about choosing your mentors and collaborators wisely. That it's so important. That's really what helped us so much with chapter 1. But we interviewed like several. I want to say half a dozen. Maybe it wasn't quite that many engineers and studios
Wow.
for Chapter 1. Just shopping around because we didn't really have the best lay of the land. Like I said, this was our first album, and we just wanted to get a sense of the options and flavors and how different people operate. And so we would go in to the studio, meet the engineer, see the room that we'd be recording in, ask them how their process usually goes. And, you know, we were pretty critically interviewing each engineer, and we picked the one that we did. Again, Gary Calhoun of Beltree Studios, for that project, because that was the best fit for that project. But, you know, then we're getting ready to put out a vinyl really soon, which it's a 7-inch, it's a single, A-side, B-side. We went with a different engineer and a different studio. His name is Nate, and I am totally blanking on his studio name. I'm sorry, Nate.
Shout out, Nate.
I'll figure this out and rep it better in the future. But, you know, so I guess I'm bringing all that up to say that different collaborators for different projects often make sense. You know, if you have a specific feeling and energy you want for one album or one single or whatever, like, take the time to do a little research and find the right people for that specific vibe that you're going
Yeah, you
for.
don't want every album to be the same. So you guys just went in and recorded the second album, or volume, Chapter 2? I guess
not quite Chapter 2 yet.
Now we're coming up with names for albums.
Yeah.
Like,
not quite Chapter 2
first
yet.
one was easy.
But we just recorded 2 songs, one cover and one original, that are going to go on a vinyl that I'm super excited about. I am very excited about it because I love the songs, but perhaps even more than the songs, what this vinyl is turning into is becoming a really fantastic project. So Sheverb riffs on a lot of spaghetti western vibes.
Right. It's in the title. What was it? Psychedelic spaghetti western, rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I heard that in the first song. I was like, yeah, spaghetti western. I get it.
Thank you.
Right there.
And when we first started playing, someone came up to us after one of the shows and made a very simple comment that was something like, it was just really interesting to see all women playing spaghetti western music. And hearing that comment from a person in the crowd just kind of like set off a little light bulb for me. I had never quite thought of it in those terms, that there was something novel about females playing the kind of music that we were playing, but it kind of set us off on this whole trajectory, really, of thinking about the gender lens as it applies not only to the kind of spaghetti western film genre and the music associated with it, but also rock and roll in general, also society at large. And so that has, using kind of the spaghetti western canon as a lens through which to think about the gendered undertones that have been part of our cultural identity story, the myth of the Wild West, not just the myth, also the reality of how our country was formed, colonialization, and rugged individualism, and manifest destiny. There was a lot of, very male-dominated time in our society, with a lot of more masculine-leaning principles reigning supreme. And so to have today, in the current age, a group of ladies kind of riffing on that, there's some very kind of provocative, fun cultural implications going on there. So and these are conversations we have in the band all the time. We're an instrumental band. We don't have lyrics. So it's kind of fun. I don't know. It's interesting how much of this kind of backstory and philosophy that we're developing within the confines of instrumental music. It's another reason why we kind of dress up the way we do, which you commented on earlier. But, without having lyrics or to kind of help give a little bit of a crystallized message to your band, having more visual cues to help contextualize the music and what our point of view is, the visual cues go a really long way. So, always bring out the psychedelic.
I would say you should have like
stuff.
2 6-shooters and just like between songs and just shoot them up in the air and just like,
well,
oh yeah, this is going
we
along.
have I'm glad you brought that up, because it is another entrance to a talking point. We used to do a lot of sound effects during our set, kind of as a homage to spaghetti western canon. There was
Right.
always a lot of like real world sound
Ricochet of a
effects
bullet.
going on, and we decided that, kind of in our rejection of the classical spaghetti western value sets, that we wanted to also reject the ingrained violence that was very part and parcel of the spaghetti western canon and kind of our Wild West mythology. So we took out any gunshots. We used to
so
have
no
a gunshot.
guns.
We took out gunshots. We didn't want to be bringing that into our music. There's a lot that we try to do where we're basically saying we want to play with these themes of the Wild West, but we want to reimagine it. We want to reimagine it in a way in which, women and men are equally represented. We want to reimagine our Wild West mythology in a way in which collaboration and community are valued over domination and conquest and genocide. We want to reimagine
those are all really bad things.
our Western aesthetic and story in terms of nonviolence instead of the hyper violence that was
Right, shootout in the middle of the street at high noon.
So anyways, we love the old canon of the spaghetti western stuff, but the blatant sexism and the rampant violence are two of the things that we really purposefully cut out of our presentation of it.
You just described like all of High Plains Drifter. It was just like from start to finish. I was like, this is a very violent movie.
Yeah.
You're very violent. I was just thinking, how many sound effects you can just get from a horse alone?
Yeah.
Spurs.
Clappity clap.
The clappity clap.
Clappity claps.
The,
Yeah.
Wonder how that sounded
You
on the
gotta
audio.
come and you can just do some horsey sound effects.
That's my spirit animal. That's my spirit animal. I remember for Christmas, greatest Christmas present ever. Dad was like, I got one big Christmas present. It's at your grandma's. It was a fucking horse. It was a fucking horse. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. My brother was terrified, but I loved to put him on the back of the saddle and just kick that horse and make it go faster. And he would cry so loud. And I thought it was the best thing in the world. I was not a good older brother.
That's okay. I'm an older
He's
sister.
stronger now. You should meet him.
Yeah.
I beat him into being a stronger person. But I could do horse sounds. Yeah, I could
great.
rent a horse. I'm good with them. Yeah, we're same people, same folk.
You ever seen the horses come into the White Horse? On the horse?
I
Urban
work at
cowboys?
Stay Gold, and they were saying the one time that guy came in on his horse because it's one of the owners, I guess, and it immediately like, shit on the ground,
I was
and they
gonna
were like,
say,
"Get
did
the
he shit on
fuck
the
out!"
dance floor? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's what happened
exactly.
the one
Yeah,
time I
yeah.
saw the cowboy horse situation in the White Horse. It was quite a spectacle and grand, but then there was a huge pile of horse shit on the dance floor, right,
It's
where everyone was
fucking
trying to
horse shit.
two-step.
There was something a
Texas
little,
problems.
refreshing.
Hashtag.
Like you just drive in and you're sitting in traffic at a light, and you're like, God damn, it's hot, and you look up and you just see a guy go by on a horse,
Yeah,
and then his friend comes by on a donkey right behind him, and you're like, that brightened my day.
and then you
That
see a
brightened my day a
social
little.
ride of bicyclists right behind
Yeah.
them, because that is Austin in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Okay,
much.
well, okay, I went off on a tangent about the spaghetti western thing, but I had a point I was trying to bring this back to, which is this vinyl that we're going to put out. So, a lot of the backstory, spaghetti western, we're trying to kind of subvert or invert some of the traditions of the spaghetti western canon, flip them on their head. Often this is around the lines of gender and playing with gender. So, imagine how floored we were the day that we found on Reddit an interview with an artist who was doing portraits that replaced men in classic spaghetti western films. Not just spaghetti western, they were western films in general, some American made. The iconic shots, she was replacing the men with women. So like the famous shot of Clint Eastwood and Good and the Bad, the Ugly with the poncho over his shoulder.
Yeah.
She did a huge portrait of that, but had a woman in place of the man. And there was this whole kind of experimentation on the artist's end in terms of wanting to assign power to those that were completely rendered powerless in that initial canon, that initial film genre.
Right. Not a lot of strong female characters in those.
It's disgusting. It's very. I mean,
it's always the damsel in
what is
distress
this
kind of a
doing
thing. Yeah.
To the little girls growing up on these videos.
Yeah.
You have no representation of what it looks like to be a badass woman maturing. I mean, your roles are very limited when you are consuming media that portrays the helpless damsel only as your only option as a female. But so we started looking into this artist. Her name is Felice House. It turns out she lives in Austin, and she has a studio about a mile from my house. We found her through a Reddit interview. Home. So we reached out to her, and we basically said, what you're doing with your paintings is exactly what we're trying to do with our instrumental psychedelic rock and roll. And we feel a lot of synergy. We would love to use one of your paintings on something in the future. And then the idea of this vinyl started to come together, and this whole thing is resulting in us collaborating with Felice House, and we're going to be using a portrait that she drew or painted. It's called Julia Dean. She replaced a James Dean shot from the movie Giant with a woman. It's a stunning portrait, and that's going to be the cover of the vinyl.
Oh, nice.
So this is, again, similar to having like Hartley Hall come out and do the voiceover on our first album. This was, again, us trying to like handpick other badass, awesome female creators that are kind of playing with the same themes,
same ideas
that we're going for, and bring them into the Sheverb world a little bit, have some exchange there. So
I would buy a shirt with one of those on there.
Thanks.
Yeah,
yes. We hadn't talked about a shirt yet, but we're actually this month, we will be starting a Kickstarter where the songs are already recorded and mixed. We just need to, and mastered even. We just need to do the final, most expensive pressing into the vinyl stage.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to raise a little bit of funds to do that, and that's going to be like our next big push. And as soon as it comes out in this next couple months, it will be a collectible item for sure, featuring Felice House's beautiful, beautiful painting on the front.
Oh, I'm definitely looking forward to it, even though I don't have a vinyl player, but I have a friend, I think, that has one.
Yeah. Vinyl nights, man.
But it would be your guys' 2-year anniversary, though, in July.
Oh,
just a couple of days, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Did you guys even think of that?
No.
You didn't even think?
Nope.
Like, you got the show coming up on the 6th, house party I saw.
Yeah.
2-year anniversary of Sheverb.
Wow. I hadn't really thought of it quite in those terms, but man, we've knocked out a lot in a short amount of time.
In 2 years, yeah.
I'm proud of us. I love these ladies. It's a really fun group to work with. I feel very lucky.
And it's great to be in a group that you love those ladies, like that you have fun with and that you're friends with outside of just playing music, and that could be very important too.
Yeah.
Because that helps you build or
I don't know how people
write
do
really
it.
good songs.
If you don't like the people you're making music with, I don't know. I guess I just don't have that. I don't think I could do it. I don't have that relationship.
I just keep thinking. I love everyone I'm in a band with. I always just keep thinking like, maybe we don't get along, like on everything. Like our personalities are very different. But if one thing we can come together with is this music, then it could open up and grow a relationship outside the fact.
That is so positive.
One of the bands we were in, and the same thing happened to y'all. Like, just got a bass player. Couldn't find a bass player to say anything, right? And it's just gonna be some guy off of Craigslist, not gonna be like someone you knew. So you have to get to know the person as they come into the band. They're trying to collaborate with you, but you got to go out, have a beer with them, sit down, talk, share stories, and just get to know the person a little bit better. More so than just, wow, he can play bass, like he knows notes, right? But that doesn't make good songs. That doesn't build good songs. It's more like our personalities and like having an idea of like where both of our heads are at to kind of like branch off, and then you can start just to read each other without talking.
Yeah,
the eye contact thing.
It's true.
You know,
man, I tell this story all the time. But our bass player, that's the newest member of Sheverb, we put a ad out on Craigslist, and she responded, and so did a few people. We did interviews, and then we did a second round of interviews, and Lainey, who we went with, she came to two of our, she performed with us, 2 shows, And then we were taking off for a 3-week tour that we had already done all the planning and legwork for, assuming we were going to go out on the road as a 3-piece. But the first 2 shows we did with her were so killer. We asked if she would maybe want to come on a 3-week tour with us. And she responded that she had already requested the time off work. She was just waiting
for us to ask. Oh.
And
what if you never asked? How crushing would it be for her?
Well, we'll never know.
We'll never know.
Because we did ask, and she jumped in the
"Hey,
van,
y'all."
and then there was 3 insane and one thing you got to know about Sheverb, we do not do normal tours. We are all weirdos who've been involved with Burning Man and weird underground art scenes all over the world, and so when we put together tours, it is a reflection of that. And we're playing places like Slab City and Arco Santi, and if you don't know what those places are, I recommend looking up both of them. Lots of like off the grid anarcho or guerrilla or intentional communities, kind of a deal, out in the middle of nowhere in weird places.
That's pretty cool. That's shaking it up, for sure.
It's fun. And then we'll hit a big city once every few stops, but try to like keep it to a lot of the weird off the beaten path, off the grid places. So Lainey jumped in the van. We had 3 weeks on the road together where we went to a lot of these really bizarre places. And man, what a good way to like get to know someone immediately. It's like a sink or swim situation.
In the same vehicle, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, let's see how this goes.
Sleeping in the same room, traveling in the same van. Like it was a really crazy adventure. But for sure, I think cemented us all as fast friends. And I mean, I've known people for years and know them less, you know what I mean, than you know someone after a 3-week tour like that, where you're just every moment together and going through the challenges and the highs and the lows and all the unexpected.
People's attitude, just being in a bad mood, you're tired, maybe don't eat so much, there's a lot of things that are kind of stressful. Yeah. And it's how you deal with that stress is how you would pick someone to like be like, I can work with this person, I can live with this person. Like,
could have backfired, man, but it was
been bad.
A very positive experience all around, so we lucked out.
Well, another thing is so fascinating about y'all, and this is probably why, like, 2-year anniversary, why you guys gotten so far. It's like you were saying, when you guys picked the producer, how you picked the bass player, you're very meticulous about exactly what you want, and you know exactly what you want, and you're not willing to settle for it. And I think that goes a very far way, like a long way as well, because you won't just settle for any bass player to come in and then you have to kind of move them into the space that you need them to be. You were looking for someone that was in the same space as like that missing puzzle piece to go together. You're not just shoving just whatever, this piece is going to fit, I'll make it fit and just smash it in. You wanted, like, y'all wanted what you wanted, and you did the work to do it. You just did not settle. And I think that's a great tip for any band out there, that you shouldn't just settle. You should look and work hard, and it's all about working hard. You know what I mean?
Life's too short, and there are so many people on this planet. There are other people that are going to be aligned to your values, your mission, your style of doing things, of operating. You just gotta like go find those. I mean, it's like dating, right? And
it is exactly like dating.
If it's like a lukewarm, it's like, come on, man, don't got time for that. Life's too short. Keep looking until you find the great things. And like,
isn't that always awkward to be like, so you're not really working out?
I'm lukewarm.
Breakup.
I'm not good at those conversations.
What we did, we just we were like, yeah, you did pretty good. And as soon as he's like packing up his stuff, had his back turned, hit him with the shovel, put him in a burlap sack, and we buried his ass out in the woods. Like, we were like not willing to have that conversation one more time. We were like, you knew what you were getting into. Bam. So, yeah, I remember the guy at Music Lab made that comment, and he was like, what are you guys doing to these bass players? Every time I see you guys have a new bass player, and we're just like, you're just not working out.
Don't look in the backyard.
Yeah. Nothing. Mind your own business. Unlock room 17 now. I'm glad you guys did find a bass player. Very hard. And would you guys settled for a guy bass player?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Sheverb.
Yeah. Well, for us, it's like Sheverb is definitely about calling out the the feminine aspects of life, but we don't want like biologically assigned gender to necessarily be like an exclusionary criteria. You can participate in this project, you can't participate in this project, but for sure, if we had a biological male apply and it seemed like a great fit, everyone was on board to explore that possibility. Right. But we wanted it to be a person who philosophically and ideologically was aligned and allied to supporting the feminine principles and operating in a way that's a little bit different than most rock and roll bands. And so that's the important part to us.
And the spaghetti western thing, I didn't even think of that. That is mainly a male dominant like genre of music, where like you always just see these guys in those bands, but I didn't even think about it. Even when I saw y'all, I didn't think twice. I'd be like, I've never seen an all ladies, western type band before. That didn't really click. I just thought it was like really, I liked the music. I thought it was really cool, and you guys had this like aesthetic and like an image to you guys. So I was like, oh, this is great. And then to hear someone say that comment, and be like, oh, we didn't even think that was like you were saying, a trope.
We just liked the music we liked.
Right, yeah.
We
and
are
had
the people
no idea.
We are. And it really didn't even totally fully click for me until a little ways into
it wasn't
us
intentional.
Playing. But now that we've had a lot of those conversations, it's really fascinating and just like a little glimpse into some of the conversations. I mean, it's that we have. I mean, we're all friends. We hang out all the time. Lainey, Zena, Fern, and myself. But it's like, if you think about those foundational kind of principles that were captured in the the Western film genre, as well as what was happening during like colonial America, where kind of our modern conception of ourselves and our culture started to take form. A lot of those principles, like I'll again reference that rugged individualism. We celebrate the lone gun hero, the individual who will stand forward and usually use violence or aggressive means to
solve the problem.
Solve the problem to their own end. I mean, we could talk about how capitalism and our current state of ecological destruction is kind of an offshoot of that philosophical framework.
Yeah, murderous bunch of folks we are.
Our community or respecting nature maybe as much as we should. And the reality is, in the development of the West, I mean, it wasn't like one single rugged individual was successful in surviving and creating a life in the Wild West. There was communities of people going out and supporting each other to help colonize and further genocide and things like that. But it was a communal effort, but that's not how we framed the story. We framed the story in terms of honoring, putting the hero, the lone, always male, hero on a pedestal. I mean, just think about how that reflects the modern band picture. When you think of a band, you think of a bunch of stoic individuals, and there's usually one person out front. This is all kind of a reflection of how we have conceived of our community and our culture and things like that. So, flipping it is a lot of fun to think about things like, instead of us all looking really stoic and we have one person out front, just something simple like in our band photo. What if we were all, we had it completely even, everyone had the same amount of priority or ranking assigned to their presence in a photo. And what if instead of looking really tough, we're smiling? Or what if we're touching? Or what, I don't know. There's all these little ways that you can take these kind of heady concepts and then put them into a tangible, manifestation or practice.
Yeah, and make it fun. Like, have a little bit of that. Like, everyone always hates the idea of like some metal bands or metal heads, because they're just so, they don't laugh. It's like, I can't watch comedy or can't smile because it's not metal. It's like, that sucks. And I love to see someone that plays like that type of music but still has like a very fun personality and does smile like in their pictures, instead of just being like black metal in the woods, just trying to look tough, and just more play into your who you are naturally. I mean, I would say like there's like a kind of a character I created, but in actuality, it is me, but it's more of like a more highlighted part of myself. So I always just think like I'm calm and normal here, but when I get up on stage, like everything changes. I flip the script. I become more open. You'll never find me do karaoke, but you'll never see me not sing when I'm on stage. You know what I mean? And I don't find myself a good singer, but there's something that I like. I amp myself up. I put myself in that headspace, and I just become a performer, I guess, a little bit of a ways. And like you just get out there and be like, bam, like, and just come to life and kind of grasp that. That is great that you guys just took something and then flipped it upside down, and it really does create something new and original, because who would want the same band over and over again? Even though there's plenty of other bands out there that might like sound like y'all or might even look like y'all, it still won't be y'all, because there's not you, and there's something that y'all do that sets you guys apart from any other band in the genre alone.
Thanks,
yeah,
we're having a lot of fun. I know
important.
we're not gonna. We'll be around for a while. There's a lot of really fun ideas bubbling to the
Still
surface,
happening.
and cool projects on the horizon. I'm very excited to see what happens. I'm proud of everything we've done in 2 short years, and shit, we got a lot more fun stuff coming up soon.
Yeah, many more projects. So this is probably like towards the end. We're gonna wrap it up, but then did you have anything like you wanted to? Well, there's one thing I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Since you do the marketing thing for a living, the graphic art, help promote bands or whatever, just companies, do you have like one tip for an up and coming band that's just starting their Facebook page, just starting their Instagram page, and trying to find the right layout, like a mistake that you see common people make, like common bands make in the beginning?
You gotta find a way to generate graphics, visual content. If you don't have someone in your band that happens to be a graphic designer,
if you don't have a Betty,
there are tons of free resources on the web, and a lot of them have gotten increasingly like user friendly, intuitive, free. Again, I'll stress that. And someone, whether it's someone in the band or maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend of the band or a friend that wants to support, find someone that will start creating those visual graphics, the content, not just hey, we have a show coming up, but you need to be putting out regular visual imagery. Have your like Facebook header and your profile picture coordinated and clearly representing you.
A link to find your music if you have music.
For sure.
Where are you from? Like I follow a lot of people around the world. If you're not listed on like you're in Austin or Germany, how am I supposed to know?
Yeah.
Go further and do further research.
And honestly, people will take you so much more seriously if you have some good photos. And hire someone. There's no shortage of
and it's not that
photographers in
expensive, right?
Austin.
Yeah.
Have someone come to one of your shows and take some live photos of you guys, or hanging out before or after a show, and
or
make that prominent.
Just hire you. Like, you could just hire Betty. Like, you can go to her Facebook page and then sign up for it, and then pay her to do this for you, because that's what you do for a living, right?
My dance card's getting a little full these days. Don't contact me.
If you pay her more money, she will do the job. Just don't undercut.
I got lots of friends I can direct you to, though, if my plate's too full to take on any
That's a good thing,
projects.
too. Yeah. I wanted to ask you that, because if you have probably a better understanding than any musician in this town, especially of the marketing side, the content, the links. These are super important.
It is super important. I gotta say, one thing that's been really driving me crazy lately is it gets really obvious to me when bands that are just starting out pay for followers and bolstering their numbers, which can be so tempting. And if you've got a family member or a friend that wants to throw money at your project, then awesome. But if you put all of that money into paying to up your Facebook likes, it gets really obvious really fast. You'll see that like this band has only played like 4 shows, but somehow they have 10,000 likes.
Yeah.
And then you see a video of their performance, and you can tell they're very green and they're just starting, but they have, you know, like more likes than the Black Angels or whatever. Like, I don't know. To me, that can be a tempting thing that immediately looks very inauthentic, not genuine.
Right.
You want to be genuine. Give people a sense of your personality and just go work the grind for a while until you start to get the ball rolling on some
and
of
the
that
likes
stuff.
should be a reflection, and this is how it should work, a reflection of you progressing as a band. The farther you go with it, the more it becomes and the bigger it becomes. But it's not going to be in a week. It's not going to be in your first couple of gigs either. I mean,
Yeah.
second anniversary for y'all, that's 2 years. So
Wow.
yeah, it's 24 months.
Wow.
How many gigs? Who knows? But it still took
How
time.
many coffees?
Yeah.
How many late night
How many
writing sessions?
gallons of coffee? Yeah. Show on the 6th, July 6th.
Yeah, it'll be a really, really fun house show. I'm so excited. Everyone come. It's going to be a great party, house party. Everyone's welcomed. If you look up Sheverb on Facebook or Instagram, you can find the address to it.
It's going to be next Saturday.
Yep, July 6th. We're going to be playing with our friends Dusty and Moira, who are an amazing 2-piece duo that we got to play with at the Electric Church when they came through town last. We're going to be playing with Rich Russell of the Lonesome Heroes, another awesome friend. It's going to be a great time. In general, Sheverb is gigging a lot these days, so if you don't catch us on July 6th, check out our Facebook or Instagram or Bandcamp or Spotify.
So many more shows.
We've got a lot of shows coming up.
Well, awesome, and thank you again for being here.
Thanks for doing this and having me, Scott.
Yeah,
I love what y'all are
of course.
doing, helping make the scene.
There's still so much we could talk about. There's still things we didn't even dive into, like the music scene in Austin, or whether or not it's great to play all the time or really hold off. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much more to talk about, and we can always have you
Next
back
time.
on. You know what I mean?
Next time.
Yeah, next time. All right. Well, thanks, y'all.
Thank you.